Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Lead, Grow, Deepen, our diversity series. I am so excited. We have so much planned for you guys today. I am your hostess with the mostest. You guys all know me. I am Shannon Carroll Washington. Today, I am super excited because not only am I going to learn about something that is super delicious, I get to talk to somebody who is completely awesome and a great conversation. Every single pre-interview I've had with him has been amazing. But of course, before we get started and everything that we do, I want to make sure if you've never been with us on a diversity series, you know what we are about. We are about leading with inclusion, growing with diverse representation, and also deepening our relationships through DE&I. So that is what we're here for. This is the diversity series. We meet once a month usually. I know schedules have been crazy, so we got kind of a shakeup this month, and it's a little off, but you guys are going to get all the goods. I promise you, we're going to bring them to you as much as we can. So we have 45 minutes to about an hour slated. Some little housekeeping before we get started. You guys, I know you have found that live chat right over to the side. Please, please, please comment, ask questions. You guys are a part of this conversation. Everything you put in there, I can put on the screen so that way we can ask these questions. This is your conversation. You're here. We want to make sure that everybody is represented. Everybody has a chance to speak. And our guest today, he's excited. He's ready for all your questions. So please chime into that chat throughout. If you like what he says, give a +1 in there. If you want to say whoop, whoop, then say whoop, whoop. It's all about call and response. That's the way I grew up. So that's what we're going to have going on. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our next part of it, our actual guest. And I'm going to give this short, this is the tip of the iceberg of this guest. You guys, I don't know if you're excited, but I'm excited. We have Chef Irfan Dama with us today. His vision is to make you a better Indian cook. On his YouTube channel, he shares his tips, his tricks, and his kitchen hacks that he uses to simplify his Indian cooking process. I don't know about you guys. If somebody is going to give me all of the hacks, I am taking it. But he also loves cooking outdoors over an open fire and wants to share his outdoor cooking experience adventures with you. So without further ado, put a 1 in the chat to say welcome to our friend, our guest, Chef Irfan Dama. Woo! Yes, welcome. Oh my goodness.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am super excited that you're here. I have so much that I want to talk to you about, and I'm sure we may get to everything today. If not, you're going to be coming back because there's just you have so much to give, and I am so excited. I'm looking at all the ones in the chat box. Everybody is welcoming you. I am so glad that you are here. Old friends are in the chat. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm super excited. So I basically didn't tell anybody anything about you with that bio. I just kind of scratched the surface of what you do now. So tell us, what's your background, who you are, what do you want to share with the world?
I like to, if I had to describe myself in 30 seconds, the elevator pitch, I'm an Indian chef and storyteller. Basically, that's that. The lessons of Indian cooking through the generations have been passed down from mentor to student, from mother to daughter, from guru to chela, through the process of hand-holding and storytelling. And I believe that can continue till today. The hand-holding and the storytelling, it's just the medium has changed. The medium is now video, it's YouTube, it's one-on-one conversation. But that age-old tradition of passing on secrets and guiding you along the journey, that has not changed. And that is what that is what I have chosen to dedicate my life to, being the Indian chef and storyteller and guiding you along the path. I started this journey in India when I was a teenager. I went to the School of Hotel Management. I wanted to be a chef back then, but I was shoved to the front of house because customers loved me too much, and I was told, you're a waste of time in the kitchen. Go out and dazzle customers, and that's where my life began. But there's always something that gnaws at you that you feel is unfulfilled. And in 2007, when I worked as a catering conventions manager, I was called to help the kitchen just to give creative tips on how to make their Indian food better for an upcoming convention. And I don't know, it's some, I was watching the chef have this big bowl of probably 100 pounds of chicken, and he's putting spice, sprinkling it like that, and I'm like, it's 100 pounds of chicken. You need to be bold. You need to have more. And then it was like, what, jacket off, tie off, give me an apron, somebody, sleeves up, and I'm going like, dump this packet, don't sprinkle, dump, because this is you're working, you get flavors, and the chef walks by and says, hey, you seem to know what you're doing. And I kind of bragged a little bit and go like, yeah, I'm a trained Indian chef, which was, my training was culinary school. And he goes, good, I want you to lead the team when we're cooking Indian food. I'm like, oh, wow, that's good. How many are we cooking for? About 2,300 people. And that's when it went, oh, crap, what have I got myself into? But the journey began there. It started off with me helping the kitchen, and 2,300 people. I don't know how it just came to me naturally, and we had rave reviews. And before you know it, the sales department was saying, we now have a master chef on team, so you can bring your Indian cooking business here. And so I was running 2 jobs, and I just realized that cooking is what gave me more happiness than all the years of trying to meet sales targets and so on and so forth. So 2009, the crash happened, and a lot of us lost our jobs. That seemed to be like, it was the worst thing that could happen at the time, but it was also, well, if I had to do something different, what would I do? And that's when I began my journey, starting from scratch, and began to climb up the ladder to be an Indian chef. That's sort of in the nutshell.
I mean,
yes.
If that's not the most simplified, just begin climbing up the ladder. I feel like in all of these series, we kind of have these like nuggets of things that we talk about. And I know people have heard me say this, stay ready so you don't have to get ready, because you never know when an opportunity is going to come your way. And to say that you took advantage of an opportunity is an understatement. I mean, you took something that and said, hey, they can use me. And I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to wait for permission. I'm going to put myself out there and say, I'm great. I know I can help you. You don't have to ask me. I'm going to roll my sleeves up and get in there. Like that to me is fine. And don't worry about your dog barking. Everybody knows we're all home and just tech stuff happens. So yes, you have a furry friend. But just the sheer fact that you just took the bull by the horns. I mean, if that's the phrase I want to say, but you got in there and you just started dumping the spices. You didn't sprinkle your way in there. You did it. And I'm just like,
thank you.
And everybody that's on this call, I'm noticing like you have old friends that are in there. I mean, 8 years ago.
Yes.
I'm glad he's here today too, because
hi, Kirsten.
I have eaten it, but I've never cooked it. And now I feel like I'm going to have like everything going. Okay. So let's get into Indian cuisine. Like, I know for me, cooking it, I'm like, I don't know what spices. I just know I like it. I know it's colorful. I know it's vibrant. I know there's a bunch of different pieces. Like, where would I even start? Like it can be completely intimidating. Like, how do we even get started with Indian cuisine?
It's I agree with you that Indian cooking is probably the most intimidating cuisine. And when I was a student in India, the Indian department, the Indian kitchen actually frightened me, just because it was the craziest, maddest, noisiest, loudest place that you could be. It's really frightening. And so I tried to break it down, and I did that on YouTube in a 101 series that I put up. Is that, as I tell people, you don't have to be scared. When you want to play a musical instrument, you don't go out and buy the most expensive guitar out there. I'm just saying guitar because I am a Takamine chef. It's a Takamine. One's a Takamine and one's a seagull. Only another guitar player would understand that reference. But yes, you don't go out. You start small. You start with whatever you can, and you dip your toes into it. And for me, you only need 7 spices to get started with Indian cuisine. And I'll tell you what those spices are. They're 2 whole spices and 5 powdered spices. And these are cumin, mustard. These are the whole spices. And if you have coriander powder, cumin powder, red chili powder, turmeric powder, and garam masala. The garam masala is a spice blend. With these 7 spices, you can cook close to 100 dishes because these are the cornerstone spices. Now, when you want to go out and once you learn the basics and using a music reference, when you want to start riffing and you want to start improvising, that's when you can go on and keep adding more spices to the mix. As you've got a good visual representation over there. I like to say I don't have one masala dabba, I don't have 2 masala dabbas. I have 3 of them that I have at any given point in time. One of them just holds my powders, one of them holds my tempering spices, which is what goes into the oil before you start the cooking process. And one is your garam masala, which also has a dual purpose, going into the oil before you start the cooking, as the start of the cooking process, and to make that powder. But just to get started, if you have 7 spices and a set of pantry staples, Indian food is within your grasp.
All right, vocabulary break. Hold on. You mentioned a very new word, right? Everybody may not know what this is. Masala dabba. That's what that is. Explain that. What do you mean by that?
A masala dabba. So masala is Indian spices, and a dabba is the Hindi word for a box. And it's a box of spices that pretty much all houses will hold all their go-to spices. To put it into the chef parlance, this is your speed rack. This is your speed rack of all your spices that you're always going to go to. And that's what a masala dabba is for the home cook. You grab that dabba, you open it, and it's right there on your counter. Most of the spices that you need will be there. And once you're done, cap and back up there, keep your kitchen counter clean. That's basically a masala dabba.
Okay. Now, so go ahead.
Yes. I said what goes into that dabba will change from province to province because that's what each province has got a different go-to spice palette. So from the north, the masala dabba will look very different from what the masala dabba in the south looks like.
Now, when you say north and south, you're talking about in India.
That's correct.
Right? Yes. So if I am sitting here, I want to get my top 7, my big 7 spices to get started so I can cook 100+ dishes of amazing food. Mm-hmm. Like where's the best place to go to get these things? Like, can I find this in my grocery store?
Yes, you can find this in your grocery store. You can pretty much, I can say this as I can use the term we Indians because we Indians have permeated every part of this planet. I think if you go to the North Pole or you go to the South Pole among the penguins, you probably find another Indian sledding down to his masala dabba shop, I'm sure. But yeah, you can pretty much find an Indian grocery store anywhere across America. But if that is not the case, you'd be amazed at what you can find on Amazon and even Walmart. They will have it delivered to your doorstep.
All right, we got a question coming in from Chef Parks. What's your favorite chili powder that you use?
That's a good question. It depends. I like the flavors of Kashmiri chili powder. It's very mild and it's got a beautiful, vibrant color. I also love, it's hard to find a Bedgi chili powder. Bedgis are from central to south of India. They've got a very robust, again, not something extremely spicy, but definitely spicier than the Kashmiri chili powder. And these 2 are my go-to chili powders that I love using, and in whole form as well as in chili.
Yeah. So you mentioned, okay, yeah, we can find it here and there. You can order. I think nowadays it's a little bit easier with the internet and being able to order things. But do you think that somebody could they can improvise a little bit and kind of mix and match and try to find something close?
Absolutely. See, I like the approach when I restarted my YouTube effort. I'd started in 2009, and then I took a break when I started working for You Fine Folk at Guggenheimer, and then came back again at the pandemic is what brought me back. The idea behind this was a recipe to me is like a fish. If you want to know how to cook Indian food, it's like giving you the fish. You will eat for a day and you will just learn that one recipe. But if I teach you how to fish, you will be able to cook for the rest of your life. And that's the purpose. If you have your 7 spices, you can combine this with standard pantry items, and you'd be amazed at what you can come up with. And so that's where the guidance is important. You should, once you have the 7 spices, you can grow from there. It's just knowing how to use it, and that's when you need to have that guided hand. Just that voice in your ear to kind of teach you how to first cast the line. But once you learn how to cast the line and bait the hook, Indian cooking is not really that hard, actually.
All right. So my friend Deb has a question, and she's thinking on the same thing as me. It's like, what dish do you recommend cooking for people who aren't familiar with Indian food as a good intro?
Well, I would hate to say chicken tikka masala, because that's what I call the gateway drug. And chicken tikka masala is now starting to get more and more easier as a gateway for people who aren't familiar with Indian food, because pretty much anyone I have asked across the planet, including my family in Missouri, who have got no idea about what Indian food is until before I was part of the family, they just know, yeah, I like chicken tikka masala. But if I were to invite somebody to my place and say, okay, I would like to give you the Indian experience, I would start with a simple dal. Dal and rice, that is the ultimate comfort food. It is the combination of dal and rice is a complete protein. And that's what sustains India, has sustained India for generations. And a simple dal, which is lentils, cooked in a ratio of 1 part of lentils to 4 parts of water, and then spiced with a tadka or a tempering. That in itself, that itself is your playground. Based on the tempering that you add into the dal, into that simple lentil stew, you've got so many options, and you can really capture the essence of India. Because, like I said, the spice dabba changes from every province. Well, so does the dal, because that is the common man's staple. So if I were to really teach somebody about Indian food, the absolute basics, I would start with dal and rice. Shannon, you're muted.
Sorry, y'all. I was sniffling, and I didn't want y'all to hear that, so I muted my mic and forgot to unmute. See, this is why you guys are great. So dal and rice, got it. Tikka masala, those are good dishes to start with. I will say we're going through some of this stuff pretty fast, but guess what? You have a YouTube channel that goes through a lot of this. So I will give you guys links to that by the end of this. And so you can go venture out and see. And I see all the questions coming in. Before I get to that next question, you reminded me of something when you said tikka masala. In our pre-interview, you told me a kind of really funny story, and I want you to share it. I had made this graphic. It's St. Louis barbecue and mayonnaise, and somehow you have tikka masala at the end of it. Please tell our audience this story before we go any further in this talk.
I don't know, but I think you're going to lose half your audience when they see you use mayonnaise in tikka masala. I think they'd be like, "That's a hack right there." But I have to tell you the story. I was recently in St. Louis with my family, and was I was getting ready to cook for the backyard barbecue, and I wanted to do something Indian. So I wanted to do it without having to go to the grocery store. I threw myself a challenge. I went with my spice boxes. I took my 3 masala dabbas with me, and I want to see if I can make something without having to go to the grocery store. It's to challenge myself. And I can tell you that in a St. Louis kitchen, you are not going to find many Indian ingredients. And so I didn't find yogurt, which is what you need for the tikka masala marinade, but I found sour cream. And I saw this. Chef once talking about using mayonnaise as a glaze for cedar plank salmon, and he says the mayonnaise does wonders in adding moisture. The other thing is, when I make tikka masala, I always use chicken thighs, but the only thing they have is chicken breast, and I hate chicken breast in tikka masala because it dries up. And so I said, let's put 2 and 2 together. Let's incorporate mayonnaise in the marinade. It will add the fat to what is generally a very lean cut of meat and will take away the dryness. And so I added mayonnaise to the sour cream and a little bit of lime juice to get that tang. Lemon juice, and it was lemon juice that came from a plastic pouch because there were no real lemons, sadly. The other ingredient I love using in tikka masala marinades is mustard oil, which is hard to find, but French's mustard is never a problem in St. Louis. So the marinade contained mayonnaise, French's mustard, and sour cream, with lemon juice. Then I added my Indian spices. I could not believe how tasty the mayonnaise made that chicken breast. It was soft, juicy, and succulent. And I may lose credibility, and people may just kind of throw me off as a hack, but seriously, you have got to try that.
I mean,
it was a success.
When you told me the story, he like stopped you guys. He got silent. He was like, Shannon, I made it with sour cream, mustard, and mayonnaise, a little lemon juice. And it was bomb. Like, I mean, the emphasis to that. I mean, that to me is just quintessential how you talk about teaching somebody how to fish. If you know the basics, you can improvise and you can create something. You were still able to share what you wanted in that moment, even though it was like, yeah, I don't have my main staples, but you know what? Sometimes our supply chains don't work. Sometimes this happens. Sometimes we have a pandemic and we can't get the things that we need. So what do? So definitely, yes, I see everybody in the chat. They're laughing. They're like, Top Chef, chopped, all of that. Yes, for sure.
Thank you, Chef Bill.
Yes.
Chef Bill's an old friend of mine.
So we had another question. Some of them is about equipment. Before I get to the equipment, do you grind your own powders or do you buy them ground up already?
So good point. When I cook at home, I do grind my own powders, but when I cook commercially, I get them pre-ground. I used to try to grind them from scratch, and it is a labor of love, honestly. But when you're going through 10, 20 pound batches of spices every day, you have to make certain changes, and you have to make certain compromises. Is there a loss of flavor? Yes, but it is a small amount that the trade-off for something convenient is worthwhile. Okay. And I'll be honest, yes, I do. When I am organized, I can grind my spices and I store them in my masala dabba. But honestly, when things start getting really busy, I too resort to the powdered spice, and I find it works just great.
And speaking of, resorting to powdered spice, things getting busy, you also write things on LinkedIn, and I came across one of your articles before I talked to you last, and I just want to share a quote from everybody for everybody to see. Like, if you don't see him on YouTube, check him out on LinkedIn. He's a phenomenal writer. These articles are both funny and informing. So I'm going to read a quote. I used to take pleasure in choosing and chastising chefs. Sorry. I used to take pleasure in chastising the chefs that didn't follow proper protocol with regard to spices. That was, of course, before I found myself a part of high volume food production in the kitchen operation. You go on to say that, here's the thing. True masters of Indian cookery have been using pre-prepared spice blends for generations. I'm talking about the Indian aunties, the ones that run their home kitchens with a level of discipline and authority that could give General Patton a run for his money. Like, that to me, like, when we talk about mise en place, when we talk about getting things ready, and we talk about, cutting down what we're doing, grinding your own spices is great, but sometimes, we might have to get pre-made or pre-ground things. Like, what changed your mind, from going from it has to be pure?
Well, that was it. I think when it all boils down to when you're in the fire, you've got to improvise, and you got to make things work to make those deadlines happen. And it's when I was cooking in a high volume operation where the menu changed every day, and you were feeding 1,000 people coming through your counter, coming through your restaurant, and you have to come up with that. You have to come up with shortcuts. And I then remember I went back, right to the kitchen where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And in my kitchen, my mom had her curry powders. Now, my mother is an excellent cook. It's thanks to her cooking that I have the palate that I have today. And she had her spice powders, and pretty much every auntie, every mother of the kitchen who runs their kitchen with using a flat spoon as a correcting tool, not just to flip the chicken and to flip the fish. It's a correcting tool. If you don't do something right, the imprint is left on your backside. There are powders that I use. my family, my family, where I come from, we are the East Indian Catholic community. My mother is from the East Indian Catholic community, and we have this spice blend called the bottle masala. It is made once in a year when the Kashmiri chili harvest comes in. Every family has their own recipe that they gather and terrace. You have your backyards that are full of these spices drying, and then you call the true Spice Girls. This is before the Spice Girls were business. These are ladies who come in their saris, and they have their saris tucked up into the back so that they've got movement. And they come with this giant mortar and pestle, and the three of them with these 3 pounding bowls that they will gather the spices in. Each spice is first individually roasted, dried, and then put in. And then they start in sort of a rhythm like bum, 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 bum. And they pound it together, and you make your masala for the year. And that is some of the most authentic food that you get. And you make these curry powders at that time because that's when you have the harvest. So it's easy for chefs to go say, you should make everything from scratch. But let's look at tradition. And tradition does not make everything from scratch. Tradition does not. Tradition is full of these shortcuts because Indian housewives had to run their homes, make sure their kids got to school, they make sure their kids got their food. You have to have these shortcuts. And I'm not going to go to an auntie and say, well, you're using a curry powder. That's not authentic. I wouldn't have a finger left. So that's when I come to that realization. Yes.
I mean, listening to these stories, I can see them. I see them vividly, like all the colors, all of the smells and the feels of everything. And I know when we talked previously, we had mentioned, about when you immigrated here and what was left behind and all these stories and how you stay connected. And I know one of the things that you brought up the documentary High on the Hog. We were talking about Adrian Miller, our friend. You guys, if you didn't watch the diversity series with him, go down into the video logs. It's there. But that was a very different immigrant experience. Being a Black woman, I look at my ancestors, my ancestors didn't choose to come here. So there's a difference in our experience and how we are setting up our roots here in the States. And so talk to me about the choice to come here and, what is left behind? What is that feeling like? And how do you stay connected to who you are through food?
Thank you. Interestingly, the latest project that I'm working on is a podcast called Immigrant Kitchen Stories. And in the Immigrant Kitchen Stories, I am reaching out, being an immigrant myself. I realize that the journey for any immigrant, anybody who leaves their home, it's never an easy path. There's always a moment where you miss home so terribly that you will resort to the food from your childhood to give you that comfort. And so in Immigrant Kitchen Stories is about following the stories about the immigrant and following the stories with the lens on the food. And so I'm reaching out to other immigrants and talking about their food and talking about their stories. But it is true that the Indian immigrant has got a very different story from the stories of desperation that we're hearing out there, the sad stories of what we're seeing in Afghanistan, what we're seeing south of the border, where you are fleeing persecution and you are running away from a life that is near hell. Most of the Indian immigrants that came here because they are very highly educated and they are skilled in a field that is much in demand. And so the Indian immigrant experience is very, very different, and it's not one of desperation. Yet it is still one where you sort of miss your home and you miss where you come from. In one of the conversations I had with my cousin, he said, we are truly rootless, not ruthless, but rootless. As in, we don't have a root, we don't have roots, and we don't have a root as in route, R-O-U-T-E. It's we are ruthless, and it's that is the existence of the immigrant. We have chosen to come here, but we are literally like straddling two sides of a riverbank. It's just we're neither here nor are we there. We're trying to make ends. We're trying to figure it out for ourselves. We'll never really be truly part of the fabric, and at the same time, we don't fit back in when we go back home, because we go back home and we miss it, but we know we can't live here anymore because we're too Americanized. And I think that is the dilemma that we face. But we're still very, very lucky to come here and be accepted because of the skills that we have. It's a very different dynamic, if you ask me.
Yeah. And so how does food play a role in as far as that connection and that richness and your identity and keeping those things and spreading it and sharing who you are through food?
Well, I think the food that you grew up with as a child, or the food that was part of the fabric of the dinner table growing up, that is something that gives you the most comfort ever. And I have a story for when I was a cook at Guggenheim, and I was cooking at the Indian counter. I would change the menu every day, and so this one day I had a South Indian menu. And when I worked in Delhi, a South Indian chef never ever ate the staff meal. He would always make this concoction on his curd rice. I asked him what that was, and he says, I'm Brahmin, I'm vegetarian, I don't like meat, I don't eat meat. This is my happy food, and it is rice and yogurt kind of cooked together, sort of like a rice porridge, and it has a tempering of mustard seeds, curry leaves, lentils, chilies, ginger, and garlic. It's a savory rice pudding, it's a savory rice pudding, and it is what the South Indian community uses as their dessert, shall we say. You finish your meal with that. And so it's like, I'm just make a small bowl. Nobody's going to know about it anyway. And I put this bowl out. It's a small bowl. And the Indian programmers started lining up, and they see that bowl, and it was like putting out crack cocaine. And immediately their phones came out. I was like, there's curd rice at the big table. And the bowl was gone in 20 minutes. And my chef was like, what did you make? I was like, it's a simple dish called curd rice. He's like, well, tomorrow you're going to double it because you cannot run out of this anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? Nobody knows this dish. He says, are you kidding me? Most of the Indian programmers are from the South. This was mother's milk to them. They basically was salivating at the sight of that. And so what became a small bowl eventually ended up being a giant laksan of curd rice that would be made every day. And that was that home comfort. People came from all around the campus just for that curd rice. And that is the power of that food. I got so many plus ones that it sort of blew the curve. I think the curd rice comments got 154 positive comments, when usually if you got 19 or 20, you were considered, yay, good job. I got 154. It just basically knocked everything out of order. But that was because it was going to that food from your childhood.
That food from your heart. Like, we have the impact on our users. We are food people feeding people. And the fact that you could take somebody in their workday and present to them home, you know, like, we spend 8+ hours a day. Let's be real. I mean, you can say 8 hours a day. That's a third of your life at work. Mm-hmm. And as culinarians, as people who are bringing food to people and sharing that piece to bring home and make it feel home, and just the inclusion aspect of that. I mean, it was more than just the Indian programmers that were coming for this curd rice. Like, you opened up the floodgates for other people to experience these same things and to have that taste and to be able to share that warmth and share that goodness, because I'm sure it's delicious. So I mean, I am dumbfounded. I get every day. For those of you guys who don't know me, I worked on comms. I'm not a chef, but I get to talk about chefs all day. I get to talk about food all day. And these are the stories that just warm my heart. And I'm like, yes, what we're doing is amazing. What we're doing to develop people is amazing. And I thank you for everything that you're doing, everything that you're sharing. I'm excited. I'm hoping everybody who's on this call, you know, if we get the recipe for curd rice, yes, we
happy to share
that. Yes. This is what this is all about. We're networking with each other. We're sharing with each other. We're raising awareness. We're bringing things in inclusion. So as we get going, oh no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say when I was the chef at Badal, the Indian restaurant at the Google campus, it became more than just an Indian restaurant. It also became that the missing of home began to be a conversation with the patrons. And it was like, I'm from Gujarat. I miss my dokla. Can you make me dokla? And so it became Gujarati food. It became Kerala food. It was as people spoke and said, I'm missing this, we would bring that out onto the table. Mm-hmm. And then it became, we miss our festivals, and pretty much is a festival every month in India. And so I joined with the
ERT?
with the community, with like, if you speak about one festival, I will cook one dish to match that festival. And every month we would have this festival and people came over, we decorated the cafe, we brought that food out, we spoke about it, we shared the history. And that is what made it special. It was not just a bunch of cooks cooking, it was a team of cooks interacting with a team of patrons who became diehard fans of the place, and it was an interaction that made it such a beautiful moment in time, shall I say.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we're here. We're here to provide food experiences. And so as we keep going through this conversation, you guys, please, please, please put your questions in the chat, because I'm noticing we've already talked for 40 minutes. And so you're definitely coming back for part 2. We're going to schedule this afterwards, but get your questions in. We still have a lot more to talk about, but get your questions in now, so that way we can have enough time and everybody's here while we have him live right now, Chef Dama. So as we get going, so you talked about coming to Guggenheimer, you worked in hotels. You technically, when you came here, you were like, I'm not going to be a chef. That wasn't like the first thing that was the front of your mind. Talk to me about how you came into Guggenheimer. What was that process like?
Craigslist. It was an ad on Craigslist. Well, as I had mentioned, I left the hotel industry, and I was doing gig work, taking odd jobs, getting experience, getting my feet wet, working in places where I was able to be a chef instructor as well as a cook, but just doing whatever I could. And I was cooking and making Indian food and selling to small parties and at my then wife's workplace. And I started getting very busy, and very soon I could not keep up cooking from my home, because I lived on the 4th floor with no elevator. So think about what loading up the vehicle was like: 4 flights of stairs, holding one food pan, that's just going up and down. I was like, I got to take this to the next level. I needed some experience, and I saw the posting on Craigslist, and so I applied, and my chef, Chef Aaron, he's like, all right, we'll get you in for a tasting, but this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to cook 10 dishes, and you will have 3 hours to do it. And I'm like, 10 dishes in 3 hours. Okay, that's a tall order, but I can make it work. He says, not just any 10 dishes. You can't come up with a salad, and you can't come up with a raita and say this is a dish. I want 2 breakfast items, 2 proteins, 2 vegetarian mains, 2 starch items, and 2 chaat items. Okay, now I'm screwed. And then it was put into Nourish Cafe, where between breakfast and lunch was a small counter given to me, where the chefs didn't want me there, and I'm trying to weave my way in and out and trying to prepare these 10 dishes. And at some point, I was ready to throw in the towel, literally, because there's no way I'm going to get this done, and I'm not getting. I was way in the weeds, but I'm glad that I stuck on and. Was able to come up with those 10 dishes that I knew was perhaps liked, because everybody started asking for takeout containers. I'm taking this home. And then they began fighting about what they were going to take home. Like, I'm taking the lamb. Oh, no, I'm taking the lamb home. This is mine. And I was able to beat out 3 other chefs who had way more experience than I did. And that was when I asked Chef later on, like, how come you chose me? He just goes, well, because I did not finish all 10 dishes. And he goes, that's exactly what we want. We don't want chefs putting out mediocre food. We would rather a chef say, I'm not serving something, than to be like, okay, here's a dish and it's mediocre. And he says, all your dishes hit that mark. And that's why we gave you the choice. Also, you worked well in the kitchen. I said, but you weren't there. How were you seeing it? He says, oh, we were watching you on security cameras. We like seeing you struggle. It was a little entertainment. He was apparently sitting there with popcorn watching me sweat.
Oh my goodness. I mean, this entire story, the word that comes to my mind is courage. The courage to step outside of your comfort zone. The courage to say, you know what? The people that I am competing against have way more experience, but I'm gonna throw my hat into the ring and say, you know what, I'm gonna step out. Like on this call, and whether you're watching in replay and whether you're watching it live right now, take that chance. Believe in yourself. I mean, we talked earlier where you said, I became Chef Dama. You were no longer just a cook or anything like that. When did that title chef, and you say, okay, yes, I am this person. I am Chef Dama. Like, Tell me about that. Like, what is that fine line where you're like, I'm Chef Dama, and you told yourself and you believed it?
Well, the first thing is like the courage as you speak about it. Thank you so much. That is such a that's so it's heartwarming to hear that you attribute the courage to me. But I'll have to say that is the story of an immigrant. That's what happens when you immigrate. That's what happens when you move yourself from your the place of birth and comfort, and you were thrown into. I showed up on the shores of Canada on May 16th, 1997, 2 suitcases and a backpack. And that's where I began this journey. It was 2 suitcases and a backpack. And you are competing with a whole bunch of other people who have far more experience, and you just have to figure out what are your core competencies and make it. And it's basically being an immigrant, you have this grit and you have this you develop this sort of chutzpah that I don't care. I'm gonna have to make it work, or I'm gonna be starving. And so, thank you. It's a very that is the story, and that's when did I become a chef? I think I'm not sure where along the journey it was, but I think it was that day when I was standing at the big table counter, and the chef then tells me, like, we have to rearrange the cafe because the lines for the Indian station are now longer than the lines to come into the restaurant. And now the Indian station lines are intersecting with the main lines coming in, and it's mayhem. That's when I realized, like, okay, maybe I am doing something right over here. And shortly after that, I moved from lead cook to exec chef. I think when I got the white jacket, which is exactly what I am wearing today, this was standard issue white jacket from the day that I worked, and I keep it and I wear it with pride. I think when I put on the white jacket with your name that you don't pay to get done, but your company pays to have your name on it, I think that's when you realize, okay, I guess I'm the chef today, and then it's followed by a go.
All right.
We just have to keep battling on. That's just how it goes.
All right, everybody, please put your questions into the chat while you're talking about it. I want to talk about what you're working on right now. I mean, like you said, we kind of mentioned your YouTube video. You guys can see his channel, Indian Cooking with Chef Irfan Dama, Cooking with Chef Dama. I will put the link into the chat or into the comments afterwards. But what you're working on now, I mean, you teach Indian cooking, but I think you said one thing to me that was kind of poignant in our pre-interview, and you said, I'm still learning. You know, as much as I teach Indian food, I'm still learning. Tell me about that.
Well, so the Cooking with Chef Dama, as I started, it came at the time of the pandemic because something inside of me was, as I see, the pandemic was such a difficult moment for all of us. And you're hearing stories of people our age and younger being taken into the ER and not making it. And the question always came through my mind, if I did not make this, if I was on that ER bed saying, this is my life coming to its end, what would one of my biggest regrets be? And strangely, it was not finishing that YouTube channel. I pursued work. I built my credentials, I built my career, but that passion project was always something that got left in the rearview mirror, and that was what I wanted to come back into. But also, if there was any time that people needed to learn how to cook and needed to learn how to simplify their cooking process, now is the time to step up and give back to the community that gave me so much, because the YouTube community is what saved me when I was a chef. When people come and say, I wanted recipes from Gujarat, I would find it on YouTube. I would find it on blogs. I would listen to what home cooks are doing and talking about their dishes. And I learned from that. It was my time to give back and teach people the chef's approach to Indian cooking. But then also part of me goes, I really don't have all the answers. And there is so much more I wanted to learn. And so I took a break from the YouTube channel to do a podcast. And as I'm working the podcast, I am speaking with other immigrants from India who share their stories, but also share their comfort dishes. And as I go through those comfort dishes, I am learning the process. I'm learning how things were done differently. And I think the learning dynamic needs to change from I'm chef and so I'm going to teach you what to do to I'm just another piece of this. I'm just another cog in the wheel. And everybody brings that experience to the table and we grow richer based on our collective experiences. And so that's the direction that I'm taking it. And that's the direction I'm taking it. It's not complicated to do Indian food. You need the basics. But once you have the basics, this is how some of the other masters have done it. This is what I have understood. This is what I have read. This is what I'm bringing to the table. And I'd love to hear what you can bring to the table as well. And I think that is the environment in which the best learning happens.
Yeah. I mean, I had all these plans of showing all these clips of your YouTube videos, but everybody can go. I put the link to your channel in the chat and you'll be able to go to that. We have a couple questions that are in there. One of the questions, Chef, was about, you talked to us about the 7 spices, but what are some of the kitchen tools that, you may use for this particular preparation?
Hey, Chef Bill. Chef Bill and I go back a long way. Chef Bill used to be the chef of the cafe 4 floors above me where I was cooked downstairs. And I used to feel proud that Chef Billenstein only left his cafe to come down because he would come down for my Indian food. I still wear that as a badge of honor, Chef. I just want you to know. But in terms of any special tools, knives, pans, well, I'm going to answer the question with another question. Are we talking about home or are we talking about commercial? Because if we are talking about a commercial kitchen, then the best tools for you in a commercial kitchen would be a tilt skillet, would be a steam jacketed kettle, and would be rational ovens. And if you have a flat top and a grill top, that is what you would need to make really good Indian food. This is because Indian food is saucy. A lot of food is roasted to meet the requirements. Now, if you're cooking at home and you have got the space, then my favorite is a dish known as a handi. And a handi is a round vessel it's round at the bottom, it curves at the top, and then it just has a small opening. And that is perfect for making your sauces, you're making your stews and your curries, because the round bottom allows the oil to accumulate, in which you can drop in your spices and you can fry your ingredients. And because it's round, it does not scorch. And then because of the tapering top, the aromas move to the top. They kind of remain in the top part, and that's where the aroma is trapped, and that's where the food develops that extra layer of flavor. Handis are rather hard to come by. I go to India to buy mine, but if you do find some, those are great to have. Other than that, dedicated flat top griddles that are good for your chapatis or your dosas. I have one for my wheat product. I have one for my rice product. But these are some of the things that I use in the home. But for commercial setting, what I just mentioned, and I think that's equipment that most kitchens will have, you'll be able to churn out very, very good Indian food.
Okay. So I read one of your articles from LinkedIn. We have a question about your writing. Chef, do you have a primary source, culinary or otherwise, from which you begin your writing?
Do you have a primary source, culinary, from where you begin your writing? I have to say one of the biggest inspirations for my writing was Kitchen Confidential. And Kitchen Confidential because I've rarely come across anybody who writes about not just the among the stories of the debaucheries of being a chef, came a certain pride. The pride that a general would have about watching a team run a well-oiled machine. That the pride, I don't know if any book made me feel as proud to be a chef as watching another chef talking about the pride with which he approached work. That is where I think that's where the culinary journey begins. And I have to say, the most recent blog that I read, which inspired me, was the blog called Oranget. It's by Molly Wiseman, I think. And I just love how she takes us back to that kitchen of her parents, of her dad, of slapping the table and going, we eat better than most people do in restaurants. That was kind of like, that sort of inspired me because it reminded me of my dining table. It reminded me of going out to Indian street food and Bombay street food with my dad and just having those stories. those are the stories that inspire me. It's blogs like Orangeette, and it's where it's really down home. And there's one more in terms of the writings that inspired me is Indian-ish by Priya Krishna.
Mm.
Indian-ish is I like it because it's Priya Krishna talks about her. It's a story of her parents, and in that I see what it takes to be an immigrant and to want that food, especially the practice of making your own yogurt. Today, I make my own yogurt. I have a yogurt practice, and it is a practice. It's not just making a dish. You have a system in place to make your own yogurt at home, and that has been inspired by that. So yes, it has been several stories of of culinary journeys, of culinary history. Curry: The Tale of Cooks and Conquerors by Lizzie Collingham. Another great story where she goes to individual dishes and speaks about the history of how the British Raj in India influenced the food, and how that food made it back to England as well. Some of these stories influence my writing. I hope I have answered your question.
Oh, and some. I mean, you have given us gems. I'm like going on Amazon, like, okay, hold on. You guys, if you missed it when he said it, it's on playback. The same link that you got in here. You can watch this over and over again, and you can get all this information. So as we're coming to a close, you guys get those questions in. I have one other question. I got to watch part of the clip of you visiting with your family and asking them about Indian cooking. I wish we had time to play the clip, but I'm just going to synopsis in there. And I think it was your father-in-law who said, he's like, yeah, I know you cook a lot of stuff, but you don't put no meat in it, and it's just like, it brings me to this topic of plant-forward cooking. I mean, Indian cuisine has some very plant-forward dishes, that sort of thing. I feel like this is such a great medium, especially with our culinarians. They're always looking for new ways and new things to infuse. My question for you is, do you feel like it is the responsibility of chefs to really raise awareness about plant-forward cooking and, open up people's palates so they begin eating it?
Yes, I do believe it is a chef's responsibility, and I don't mean to name drop, but the person who emphasized this is Helene Keenan, and she stood across the path from me one day when she was eating my Indian food, and she goes like, "This is tasty, and this is how we get our guests to eat vegetarian food, to eat vegetables, because if you don't make it tasty, no one's going to eat it."
Yeah.
And that becomes our responsibility. How do we, very often, a lot of the chefs that I worked with would get very angry that their budgets were slashed yet again, and so they can't bring in their beautiful prime ribs and their Wagyu beefs. And well, that challenge just makes you find other solutions. And that is the story of cooks across generations. I mean, in High on the Hog, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was no chances of getting prime rib. Well, you figured out how to make sweetbreads tasty. You figured out how to make liver delicious and use all the parts of the animals that nobody wants to make a meal that today is high cuisine and high cooking. Well, today the world needs to know how to make vegetables tasty. We need it because this is, as the planet is taking the turn and taking the direction that it's going in, we need to do something to curb that. And what's the best way to stop the methane getting into the atmosphere than just eating more vegetables and learning that vegetables can be absolutely delicious. My favorite clip of Bourdain is him sitting in a Punjabi dhaba, eating with his fingers and licking his fingers and going, damn, if I knew you could make vegetables taste so good, maybe I would not be such a dick to vegetarians.
Right. Like, oh, so good. So good. So you guys, again, put your questions in. I have one last question for you, Chef. And it's about passion. You are a person who took your passion and you ran with it and you created a career with it. And one of the things that you said to me in our pre-interview, and it kind of sticks to me, and I feel like every single person who's on this call, whether you're watching it in replay or you're watching it live, is when you step out and do something, it can be scary. And the one thing that will prove you worthy, and you said, nobody can take this away from you. Nobody can take your food away from you. If it tastes good, it tastes good. So what do you say to that person that says, I want to take my passion? Like, what do I do? How do I step out? Like, what do I have to tell myself Like, what do you say to them?
You know, this is going to be the subject of an article, but yes, that is true. Nobody can take your food away from you. Nobody can take away from you who you are. And there may be 1,000 ways of doing the same thing, but nobody can tell it the way you tell it. There are a million recipes for chicken tikka masala, but nobody can tell you how to make chicken tikka masala the way I do, because my way of telling it is different. And you have to believe in that. I write 3 pages every morning. That's my practice. I get up every morning and I will fill up 3 pages of my mind, and it helps me kind of spend my day. And yesterday, these are the thoughts that came to my mind. Being a content creator today is a lot like being the gold diggers of 1849. We found that there was gold in this mountain. There was gold in California, and the whole nation got up and said, "We are going to go and get that gold." And they came in droves. But not everybody got rich. Some people got broke. Some people lost everything. There were really a handful of people that made money along the way, that got rich. The people who actually got rich were the people who sold supplies and sold maps and sold canisters and sold the mules. But the people with the dream, not everybody's dream realized. And who are the ones, in my opinion, who were the ones who succeeded? Those are the people who actually liked to dig. The person who got up and said, "Today I will go and find the gold," is like, "Today I'm going to go and find that viral video." It's not going to happen. The person who makes it in content creation is the person who gets up and goes, "I can't wait to get my hands on editing that piece of video that I just took. I can't wait to go out and show the world this new recipe," whether it gets 100 views or less. It's about, this is who you are. Stop looking at the scoreboard. Because if you play the game well, the scoreboard takes care of itself. No one can take your food away from you. No one can take your passion away from you. No one can take your craft away from you. But you have to realize that when you are in it, you're doing it for that passion, and you're not doing it for the reward. And that in itself will give you happiness, because just doing the work is what should make you happy. Thank you.
I mean, mic drop right there. We are out of time for today. And I know, I mean, we had so much more. You guys have no idea. I had this whole slide deck prepared and had all this stuff. We're going to bring you back. I mean, there's no way that we cannot. So we can find you Cooking with Chef Dama on YouTube. You're on Instagram as well, correct?
That's correct.
So there are different places. Yes. And so if you're watching this on replay and you're like, "I have questions for him," put it down in the comments below. I will get it to him. If he doesn't see it in there, I will email him and get him the question that you guys have. I just want to thank everybody for rocking with us, rolling with us. Thank you. Share this with your friends. Share what you have. Put ones in the chat. Yes, more of one. I'm seeing it in the comments. They want more of you. So yes, we will bring you back. So share it with us. If you have other suggestions, Chef Dama, if you have friends that would like to be on this diversity series, let me know. You guys can email me, shannon.washington@guggenheimer.com. I'm super excited. Next week, we have another diversity series. You guys heard it first. Lizette Angulo Kimbrough is going to be here next week. She does awesome philanthropy and just really touching people with food. So we're going to hear from her. But before we go, everybody, I mean, let's just thank Chef Dama. Put the ones in the chat. I mean, he has shared gems of knowledge with us. I mean, it's uncanny. I am going to go cook Indian cuisine right now. I am super excited. I'm going to go get my spices. I'm going to watch your YouTube channel. I'm going to look at your both your classic demos and your new ones. Like, I am super excited. So
Shannon, the next time I do some cooking on YouTube, I'm going to dedicate a dish to you. So if there's anything you want me to cook, just let me know, a particular kind of meat, or particular kind of vegetable, or whatever. I mean, I'll call you out on that.
I am a plant-forward gal. I eat meat on special occasions, but most days it's all veggie in my house, a little pescatarian. So whatever plant-forward dish you have, I am going to take it. Yes, yes, yes. So you guys, thank you so much. This concludes this episode of Diversity Series, Lead, Grow, Deepen, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. You guys can all be the difference. So thank you, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for being such an amazing audience. I love the comments. Thank you so much. You've been great.
Yes.
You've been